Hi there, everyone. It's Ken Weber again from New York. Today is July 28th, 2022, and I'm here with Jack Bowers, investment strategist for Weber Asset Management. And Jack, every time we look at you, you have a different backdrop. You're in your office, your new office in Lake Tahoe, correct?
Yes, we have survived the move from our Reno office, and things are settling in.
Great.
It's gone pretty well.
Well, we have lots to talk about, lots of financial news. So I guess the thing that just happened this very morning is statistics were released that the GDP contracted, the gross domestic product contracted 0.9%. So by some people's definition, we are officially in a recession. By other people's definition, it's not an actual recession because the unemployment rate is still quite low. So everybody who wants a job basically can have a job, and that is not typical for a recession. So it's just a matter of semantics. So I just want to lay the tablecloth here, so see what we're sitting at. Jack, what are your thoughts on what's happening, whether we're in a recession or not, and does it matter?
Well, I think the inventory numbers are subtracted from economic output. So when you have a reduction in inventory, and certainly we've seen that with the retailers that overstocked up on things last year are all trying to clear out their inventory. So anytime you have inventory reductions, it has a negative, it's a subtraction against economic activity. So yeah, we're effectively in an inventory recession. Because the labor market is so tight, I think as recessions go.
And tight, let me just interrupt. Tight is a good thing for the average worker.
Yes, because wages are still rising even in this recession, and I think anyone who wants an hourly job can easily find one at this point in time. So we could be there. There have been recessions in the past where unemployment stayed low the whole time. I think this one will probably be the same way. People will probably debate whether it is an actual recession the whole time. It could be long and drawn out, maybe lasting, even 4, 5, 6, 7 quarters before everything kind of runs its course. But I think as far as impact on corporate earnings, it's more or less fully discounted at this point. So it's just a question.
You mean in stock prices you're talking about?
Right.
Yeah. It's already built in.
Right. Yeah. So it's really a question of how we're going to emerge from it. And I'm pretty optimistic at this point. I think especially in the tech sector and some of the other growth stocks, valuations got knocked down probably more than they should. So we probably are looking at a decent amount of recovery even during this long drawn out recession. And we're trying to get in position for that.
I would just point out that you talked about wages have been rising, not as fast as inflation, but inflation won't last forever. Whereas it tends to be that higher wages stick. People are not going to be, the employers are not going to say, well, inflation went down, your pay is going down. That tends not to happen. So long-term, the higher wages are much better than what should be temporary, can't define temporary, or transitory inflation. So the net for the employees across the country is a good thing.
Yeah, I'm optimistic that we've seen the peak for inflation. It's just probably a question at this point of how fast it will come down. I know the Fed's moves will definitely put a cap on how high oil prices can go. They may already be kind of topping out right now. And I think since that has been such a strong driver of inflation recently, any progress on that front probably helps to bring down the number. So the other factor, of course, is the monetary pressures are easing as well. All the stimulus programs and everything kind of ran out about a year ago or so. And they typically say when the monetary pressures ease, you see some relief in the inflation numbers about 13 months later. And I think we're basically there. So just monetary factors alone could help bring down the next few months of inflation readings as well. So I think, the market has been probably overly worried about inflation, and considering the situation more permanent than it really is. And so hopefully there's some upside surprise as all this plays out.
And the other factor, of course, the big unknown is Russia and Ukraine.
Mhm.
It looks very bleak as we are recording this. Everything is still, the news is all bad from Ukraine, but it could turn around. God willing, it does turn around, and Russia starts to pull back at some point. And it could happen unexpectedly. And that will be a boost for,
Yeah,
in many
yeah.
ways, for various economies around the world.
Yeah, it took a long time for the US to give up on Vietnam. So trying to predict the end of the war is really
It's impossible.
a futile exercise. But I think the main economic impact has been the real energy crunch that's most acute in natural gas. And I think Europe is trying to kind of share the pain so that if everybody uses 15% less, they can kind of get through this until they have some additional receiving ports to, pull in gas from ocean containers rather than pipelines. I think they could be ready to do that late next year. So it's really just getting through the next 12 months and trying to minimize the impact on industry over there. So, but here at home, we have a lot of productive capacity in the same things that Europe makes, and we have relatively cheap natural gas. And so it could be even an opportunity for US firms to kind of help out by boosting their production rates, whether it's fertilizer or, producing more LNG for export. There's
Liquid
a lot of things the US can
liquid
do.
natural gas, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll just point out, you touched on it briefly, but inflation is not just a US problem. It truly is a global phenomenon. And I saw one study that ranked the 111 biggest economies around the world. US was 48th. So pretty much right in the middle. Half the countries are worse, half we're better. So it's a problem that is affecting everyone around the world. All the smart people around the world are trying their best. They may or may not be successful in the short run, but everybody's trying around the world to lick inflation, whip inflation, to talk from 1970s, whip inflation now for those of you who are older. Remember
Yeah, the old Gerald Ford slogan. Yeah.
WIN, win, whip inflation now. That's right. So people around the world, France, Germany, America, Canada, Australia, they're all trying to whip inflation now, and they're all trying different strategies. But it really is going to come down to what Mr. Putin and his colleagues are going to do, because that is just a key driver in terms of energy, and of course, energy affects basically everything else.
Yeah, I kind of view it as more of a readjustment, because I don't think Russian energy output is really going away. It's just going to different places, and it's a huge adjustment. A lot of natural gas is going to go to China. A lot of the oil from Russia is going to go to China. So it's really just Europe finding other sources. And because their system was so built around this pipeline network with Russia, it's just been really a real tough adjustment to get to a point where Europe's energy can come from global sources rather than just Russia. But it is a solvable problem. There will be ways to deal with it. It's temporary. It's not a permanent problem. So I think the productive capacity of people that import LNG is definitely going to be on display here. I think things can happen fast when people are determined to make them happen fast. And Germany's the fellow who's working on energy there is making all the right moves, and he's a pretty smart guy. So I think they'll get through this. But yes, the inflation now that's energy driven in Europe is definitely more acute. It is going to force the ECB to raise interest rates probably as fast or faster than the Fed going forward. It may even bring the dollar down a little bit, which is bullish for U.S. corporate earnings. So it may keep the dollar's rise in check as well. So it is kind of ugly for Europe, but it's not necessarily ugly for U.S. companies, and it is a temporary situation.
I had a bunch of topics to talk about, but you've actually touched on almost
a little bit on everything.
Yeah. Almost everything. So I want to quickly move over to the fixed income side of things.
Mhm.
People are really confused about where to put money in a conservative, less volatile investment. And so I'd like to hear some of your thoughts on that area.
Well, we recently have been embracing longer maturity bond positions. The most recent move in some of the, I think in our 70/30 accounts, we moved from strategic income over to corporate bond, which is kind of a yield neutral move, because corporate bonds yield is fairly robust among investment grade funds in a 4.4 give or take percent yield. So it's a chance to kind of upgrade a little bit, because that fund focuses mainly on B and double B debt, but there's a lot of opportunity there, because I think many companies are managing their debt much better than the market's giving them credit for. So there might be some capital appreciation opportunities there, and it's a place in the market where Fidelity has a lot of opportunities to add value. But most importantly, it's way out on the maturity curve with a duration of above 7. And I think if the Fed gets carried away and goes too far, we get a yield curve inversion. We could see a situation going forward where each tightening move boosts short-term interest rates, but lowers long-term rates, because it increases the recession risk. And if that's the case, being in bond funds that's way out on the maturity curve is kind of a double benefit, because you're earning the higher yield and you're benefiting if the Fed tightens too much. So that's kind of how we're playing it right now. It was a little bit tricky to get the timing right, but we've done okay.
It was very tricky, that's for sure.
But at least we're in bond positions now that are largely investment grade and largely robust yields, and that's really where we want to be.
Yeah, and I'll just point out that when we hear that the Fed is increasing interest rates, very much a double-edged sword. While they are doing that to tamp down the economy, it's really great for the millions of people who are on fixed incomes. They have a chance to get some new bonds that are paying a higher interest. So for the people like that who are on fixed incomes, eventually they're going to have more money in their pocket.
Yeah, I think when inflation comes down, you might even have a neutral to positive purchasing power with just bond investments alone. And we haven't seen that for a long time.
Right. Okay, well, good. I think we've covered what we need to cover. It's hot here in New York. I hope it's comfortable out in Lake Tahoe.
Yeah, it's definitely as warm as it's been in the high 80s, but that's certainly cooler than it is in the surrounding areas. So I have nothing to complain about.
Yeah, but many of our clients who are coast to coast do have something to complain about. There's triple-digit temperatures in all different parts of the country, and we hope those of you who are in those areas or who got, like in St. Louis, 9 inches of rain in one day, wherever you are, we hope you're doing well. And we thank you for your time. Thanks again, Jack.
Thank you.
Okay, see you, everybody.